Let's bring in Jeffrey Sachs in celebration of a new book. First of all, Professor, it's a thinner book. Victor, get a shot of that. Did they tell you to write a smaller book, or did you choose to do it?
I just chose to do it because the basics, I think, are pretty clear right now.
This is different than The End of Poverty and others. This is away from many of our viewers would associate you with development. This is about developed nation economics, isn't it?
Well, this is about the U.S., principally, why we're in such a hole. And I hope today Governor Perry reads it.
You know I read it.
Of course,
we'll get you to comment on Governor Perry in a minute. Look at this quote, folks. Why do we let this guy on? Every conservative out there is right now going, how do you let that Sachs guy on? Let's each of us commit first to be good to ourselves and our long-term happiness by disconnecting surveillance midday and the media long enough each day to regain our bearings.
Definitely not at noon, though. That wasn't anything about noon.
That's a major misconduct. Put it up here right now. That's 5-minute major misconduct. What do we get wrong in this media-saturated day?
Well, what's happening actually is Americans are watching more than 5 hours every day on average. And we just had a report that young kids are watching an astounding amount. And we just had the American Academy of Pediatrics say, take your young kids away from the television set. This is no good for their brain development. This is no good for their learning. And so we do have a bit of a problem. We're the #1 TV viewing country in the whole world. We see more advertisements per hour, more advertisements per lifetime than any other society on the planet.
Michael Porter would suggest that we are the #1 in innovation. Our higher education system is good. There is some good in America. You identify that in The Price of Civilization. Yep. What is the single thing you're most concerned about as we go to the election in 2012?
Well, that we are not competitive right now in skills. We don't have the high-quality jobs being created here. They're being created overseas. We're not #1 in college going anymore. We're falling behind on in every major area, and that's because we're not investing in our future.
College chart, Jeff, these were charts we did at the debate up in New Hampshire. They were such popular charts, we kept them going. There's the primary at 2000, 2008. White line is college, yellow's no college. That divide, is that a new occurrence in your study of economic history? Would you and Brad DeLong say this is a first that we've seen this divide?
No, it's been widening now for about 30 years, that those with a bachelor's degree and above have been taking home rising pay. Those with less than a bachelor's degree have been in stagnation or in absolute decline. What's amazing, Tom, as you know, and I'm sure most viewers have come to appreciate, the peak earnings of the median male worker in this country occurred 38 years ago, 1973. With all the gains of GNP, all the innovations, it's all gone to the top. But for those in the middle, which remains a high school diploma, there has been no increase of earnings since 1973.
What about trickle down? I know it's something you're against, but the theory of those that would oppose Sachs economics is we need a vibrant elite, and their benefits will trickle down to others. A large number of people would push against that.
Well, innovation does trickle down, but Apple did create hundreds of thousands of jobs, for example, but in China. If we can't compete, we don't get the jobs at home. The jobs go abroad even when the great innovations occur. We have a worldwide economy, an integrated economy. The jobs can be anywhere. And what our firms are telling us right now is they can't hire Americans with the skills they need. So either they take the jobs offshore or they apply for more H-1B visas, one of the two. This is a broken system. We've got our kids dropping out of school. We have our kids dropping out of college. We have our kids not finishing high school even, to huge numbers. What kind of country is this going to be?
The political discourse. I want to get to Governor Perry's comments. Let's look at this. From The Price of Civilization, each party pulls its campaign contributions from the same sources and therefore does not deviate far from the core message of corporate sector and high net worth individuals. I hear this constantly, that whether it's McCain or Pelosi, they can agree that the money process of politics is something new and pernicious.
We have the most corrupted political system among all the high-income democracies. So if you take Europe, Japan, the U.S., there's a lot of corruption everywhere. But money infuses our politics more than any other place. This next political cycle is going to be a $6 to $7 billion cycle. The president is out there every week, $35,800 a plate dinners, because he's trying to...
Have you ever been to one of those dinners?
No, I haven't.
Bring you along as economic rock star?
No, but we know that when the traffic jams happen in New York, he's on his way way to Wall Street?
We know that here in Midtown Manhattan. Let's bring up here the David Brooks op-ed from today, which dovetails into the quote we just heard. And I would suggest that Brooks Economics is a little different than Sachs. The fighter fallacy. The party, yes, we're glasses. We can use glasses on this set.
Thank you. I need them now.
The party of government cannot win an orthodox versus orthodox campaign when 15% of Americans trust government, and certainly can't, et cetera, 9%. Guys, when you put up the picture there of Jeff Sachs, I can't read the quote then, so I had to stop reading. That happens every once in a while. But this is serious. We're talking here about a Democratic Party that's lost its bearing. How do the people you support get back to the ideas and the price of civilization?
Both parties have lost their bearings. When we have the Republican Party saying from this point, just cut taxes more on the rich and the corporations. I don't know what they're thinking, what kind of fantasy world they're in, but we can't even come close to meeting our most basic needs right now. The Democrats basically say about half the same thing, wringing their hands in agony, but both parties are not telling us anything accurate about the real state of the budget, the real state of our needs, the public investments that are needed.
Let's look at this confidence chart we just made up. Thank you, Ellen, for bringing that up. A less than confident America, Conference Board confidence. And that rollover, folks, is really in the last 2 months. There's something going on as you release the price of civilization. What do you perceive is this recent drop in confidence?
I think by the time of this agreement between the White House and the Congress in August, where we were at the brink of real default on the debt as a possibility, with the realization on all sides that nobody is offering longer-term solutions. Everything is relentlessly around who can raise campaign financing right now and offer a gimmick. The president's plan, the Republican plans, everything gimmicks and everything for the short term. And then you have, of course, 1,000 cities in the country where young people have, in one way or another, occupied Wall Street or gotten out there to demonstrate. And America's attention is also coming to the fact that our leading companies have broken the law repeatedly. This isn't about envy. This is about irresponsibility.
Broken the law in which way?
Well, for instance, Citigroup just paid a big fine, $280 million, for having committed financial fraud when they got together with a hedge fund to sell toxic assets. J.P. Morgan paid a $150 million fine. Goldman Sachs paid $560 million.
Are they a cost of doing business?
They may consider it that way, but the rest of us consider it really a scandalous mismanagement of our financial sector.
Don't we need those corporations, or at least some corporations, to invest to create jobs?
Of course we do.
We've got this corporate juggernaut with Rick Sherlin today on Bloomberg Surveillance. The cash buildup, repatriated earnings, the earnings that Microsoft has sitting in the till abroad is remarkable. Do you agree with Governor Perry that we've got to repatriate those funds?
We have to understand why those funds are there in the first place. We have allowed these companies, with the knowledge of the politicians and the IRS, to game the system. They're allowed to take their profits and book them as foreign profits. Right. They do that through transfer pricing of intellectual property, among other things. Then they park them in Bermuda, in the case of Google, or in the Cayman Islands, where there's zero taxes. Then they say we have, by gaming how the accounting is done, they book them at zero taxation. Then they say, let us bring them home at zero taxation. We have to stop the gaming in the first place, where they're able to declare their profits as Cayman Islands profits or Bermuda profits. That's just a game, and it's a racket. And that's why the corporate tax take is at the lowest level in modern times right now, 1.5% of gross domestic product, because it's all been allowed to be put abroad.
This conversation with Jeff Sachs, Bob Schiller off the set here, will be out in a bit. I want to bring up profit juggernauts. This is the chart that gets Jeff Sachs going. Let's bring it up here. America observes a corporate juggernaut. Your critics would say, okay, what's wrong with this? These people create jobs, they're corporations, they're hugely profitable. Is it just with globalization that labor in America doesn't get to participate?
There's nothing wrong with it per se. We have to look in the details. When you see that big spike and then collapse, we know that some of those corporate profits were actually financial paper profits that weren't real profits.
Fully agree. We all agree on that.
But I have nothing against corporate profits. We're worried about an economy in which there is shared prosperity and there are jobs for Americans in the middle class. And that's what's been missing right now. Profits are going up. the corporations are paying less and less of their taxes, so they're adding to the fiscal crisis. But the problem is that our jobs are not being created, and especially for the bottom half of the income distribution. If you have a high school diploma or less in this economy, Tom, the chance of having a middle-class life is dwindling, and that's a big problem. We have to focus on what are we going to do as a society.
This quote here speaks to another century. Let's bring it up here. Sachs quoting de Tocqueville as Alexis de Tocqueville, there I got it out, observed about the French Revolution, the most dangerous moment for a bad government is it when it begins to reform. I think all of our viewers would agree with this. This has been clumsy, hasn't it?
We've not had the reforms yet, and so far, I would say both parties are so entrenched in their moneyed ways and in the lobbying that they really represent right now. That, of course, Obama came in as a government of change, but it's been more of continuity. And the American people are kind of desperate. They don't see either party as really reflecting what they want. The American people are pretty clear about what they want, actually.
What kind of conservative? I mean, I'm thinking of a Burkean conservative from another time and place versus a new, hard-edged conservative that you're critical of. What kind of conservative ethos would you be comfortable with?
What's interesting is that you take the leaders of the free market cause, say Hayek and Friedman. Both of them said we needed help for public education. No question about it. Both of them recognized that there were both the social goods of public education, but also failures of the capital markets. It was Milton Friedman who called for the negative income tax, which riles so many right-wingers today who say, oh, the poor don't pay. It was Milton Friedman that advised on that. Don't make the poor pay, give them that negative income tax, which is now our earned income tax credit. So what it passes for today's conservatism is really a kind of slash and burn. Anything to cut government, anything to cut the top tax rates. They're not thinking anymore about society. Earlier conservatives were quite different.
Okay, I want to look at this one final quote. Bring up the Samuelson quote. This is, I think, the cry of Jeff Sachs, and this is a fabulous book. The era of economic thought from the 1940s to the 70s can be called the age of Samuelson, the genius at MIT, who personified today. What do we need to learn? Just in 20, I'm embarrassed it's only 30 seconds. What do we need to learn from Professor Samuelson?
That we need a mixed economy, a market economy to be sure, a government that is effective, fair, and looking after common interests and after the physical environment also. A mixed economy, both markets and the public sector.
Very good. Jeff Sachs, thank you so much.